Welcome everyone to our Temple of Light service. It's wonderful to see you all, and it's great to be together to worship the Lord in the highest sense. It's a delight to introduce my neighbors who we share, Carol and myself share a wall with, but we also share a great agreement with. So I'm looking forward to having this time together, and Robert and Terry Kauffman will be leading our time, and Terry will begin. Terry, are you ready?
Thank you so much, Steve. Appreciate that. It certainly is a delight to look over this company of angels. We have such a wonderful opportunity to allow heaven to be known on earth right now, in this moment. As we are with one accord in one place. It's a particular joy for me to be able to share this time. And I would like to begin with a poem that I wrote, I think it was about 20 years ago. There's magic in the air today. Can you feel it? Can you sense the significance of this hour? Do you know your part in it? For each one who serves our King has a specific responsibility to bring heaven on earth through simple tasks and interchanges right at hand. Each day is completely new, different in texture and feel. And yet, as we remain true to our purpose, the magic of life is revealed so naturally and with such ease. As the magic of our consistent right living moves out into the world, there are those who are stirring in their slumbers and are beginning to awaken, anxious to find their way home. That magic moment of confirmation may be catching the glint in another's eye, or in a kind word of encouragement, a smile. And through our consistent yieldness to the Father, the inexorable drawing force of love is abundantly available for those who have touched the magic to begin to know for themselves that indeed heaven is known in this day, and that they also have a part to play. Can you sense the significance of this moment and your part in it? I wanted to start with that poem because, to me, it highlights in very simple terms our individual responsibility, which has never changed. To be the means for heaven to be known on earth, and to extend that invitation on a consistent basis to our worlds. I know that for myself as a child, I had a very distinct feeling, and I don't think I would actually call it knowledge, but it was a feeling that I was different, that I was special. Not special in the way of better than anyone else, but I knew that I was here to bring light, lightness, joy, peace. As a young child, I had a recurring dream of a lit spiral path reaching into heaven. And I kept walking up and up and up that spiral. It was a comforting dream, although probably very perplexing, which I never forgot. I knew at a very early age that there was purpose to my life. So when I met Bill Bain Sr. in the early 70s, and he and Joe Holton gave the lively presentation on Charlie the Magnetic Man to a group of hippie student chiropractors in Davenport, Iowa, I was hooked. Oh, here's what I've always known. This makes sense. And I'm sure that we've all had similar stories of that time when we were so grateful to be able to sense our purpose and to move with life. Now, it's one thing to awaken. It's quite another to follow through on that impulse. It takes something, doesn't it? There have been many people throughout the centuries who have followed through and moved on that impulse. For the last few weeks, I've been thinking of the word pioneer and how in every era there have been pioneers, those who have been compelled and exhibited boldness to go where others have dared not go. So many character qualities come to mind relative to this that assist in the process. Courage, perseverance, resilience, follow through, and of course, many more. These ones saw opportunity where others saw a void. They saw potential where others saw difficulty. They had vision, not just vision that possibly sidesteps the immediate situation as it is, but vision which recognizes the potential in the situation exactly as it is and sees the myriad creative possibilities. I found a paper by Yolanda called The Naturalness of Perspective Vision. And I am going to read a paragraph from that service. And the excerpt actually is entitled Heaven on Earth. So this is Yolanda. He starts out. We should remember. Now, I just had to stop right there. So when I saw those three words, I said to myself, wait a minute. Yolanda is a very specific person. He isn't just saying those words for us to just kind of skip over them. He didn't say, we could remember. It might be a good idea if you remembered. In time, read this over and get back to me next week. He said we should. And then I looked up the word remember. And a few of the definitions, short definitions, bring back to consciousness, keep in your memory, to not forget. So if we think about that, we should remember, he is actually saying we need to bring this, what I'm about to tell you, back into your consciousness, keep it in your memory, and do not forget it. So that kind of got me sitting up in my chair like this after I first read those three words. I thought, this is important stuff. So anyway, he starts and continues. We should remember that all the faithful ones back through the centuries. All those who have served the Lord in whatever capacity, who stood out as shining lights, as prophets in various ages, and those in humble positions. I'm going to say that again. And those in humble positions, all the way through since the time of the fall of man, have contributed something to this hour. Okay, just digest that for a minute. Their lives have kept sweetness and reality, understanding and love alive in the world. They are the ones who have softened the hardness and bitterness of the world. They have kept it a place where life could be worth living. They were the pioneers. And we think of the pioneers who came to this country seeking religious freedom. They fought for higher ideals and stood for them. Perhaps their understanding, their action was not always what we recognize as being in harmony with reality, but at the same time, we have to remember the limitations of the world that then was, and we have to remember their limitations of vision. They did not have the same opportunities that we now have. There have been hundreds of thousands and millions of people who have walked along the way of life and lived and worked and sacrificed so that this hour could have the meaning that it does have. I'm just going to stop right there for a moment. When you think of that throughout history, that there have been human beings who have been willing to be right just for the sake of being right, and that their function actually has established patterns of substance in the consciousness of the body of mankind that has opened the way, that's actually made it easier for those of us who are present today. I'm going to continue with Yolanda. The fact that we have been given the opportunities of this hour, the privileges of this hour, purchased at such a price, achieved by so many people through so much effort, should make us thankful and appreciative, humble before the Lord, and filled with courage in moving forward. It is not just those of us who are here who share in those privileges, responsibilities, and opportunities, but those whom we represent, all emissaries everywhere, and all responding ones who are seeking to do the will of the Lord are included. It seems to me that when we face our daily tasks, it would be wise for us to remember at all times, wait a minute, there is that thing again, remember at all times that we are carrying on where all these others have left off, and that it is up to us to finish the work. Any task that is undertaken is of comparatively small value until it is finished. It is a lot easier to start something, generally speaking, than it is to finish it. And yet, when we weigh our trials and tribulations or difficulties in the balance against those others that have worked through, to say nothing of what our great master went through. And I'm going to just stop right there on that part of Yolanda's excerpt. So when you think of it, we all know the answer, but what did the master himself do? He pioneered the whole range which would allow for the reconnection of human consciousness with the consciousness of God. He went through the whole process of restoration within himself to the point where heaven and earth were one. under the most difficult and trying circumstances. No one on the face of the earth has had to undertake what he did. And yet, as we know, he moved through in utter victory. We are a body of pioneers today in the earth. Pioneers undertaking the greatest and most significant venture of which we have a record in human history. That pioneering for us brings to focus the courage, initiative, and follow through to let the spirit of purification work in our experience on a consistent basis. It is consistency and follow through, isn't it, that allows for that critical component in any outworking, that of victory. Robert and I recently watched a series on Hulu called The Bear, which is the story of a world-renowned chef named Carmy, who inherits his brother's sad, dilapidated, disorganized Italian sandwich shop. Carmy puts his heart and soul into transforming the shop with a team that we definitely could call a ragtag crew. I have to admit that when I saw the first couple of episodes, it was rather painful to watch, as his crew was utterly unable to deal with the pressure, and the crew was falling apart at the seams. But as I continued to watch, I began to see the core principle that Carmy was working with. He was only able to attain his excellence as a five-star chef because of his willingness to follow through and implement his rigorous training. At a critical point, Carmy comes face to face with the reality of the situation, and at a rather dramatic moment, proclaims to his team, "We cannot operate at a higher level without consistency." And I would add, especially under pressure. That's true, isn't it? Consistency under pressure. Victory under pressure. It is as we are able to meet those elements in ourselves and stay centered, letting the pressure build step by step without dissipating it, that allows those patterns to be cleared. Not only cleared for ourselves, but for those in our worlds. We are here to do what others cannot do. Another way of putting that is that what we do, all responding ones do. Well, we are here to consistently bring clarity where there is muddiness, peace where there is divisiveness, forgiveness where there is blame, love where there is hate. On that basis, don't we continue to move up that spiral I referred to earlier? We let the changes happen quickly and seamlessly. We stick with it and find that our worlds and those in our worlds change like magic. Especially during this time on Earth, this cycle, we are being called to be the pioneers. Our challenge is to stay centered long enough and with enough pressurized substance to actually let heaven be known on the earth on a consistent basis. The time is now. We have come to offer the blessing of our King to all nations as we stand with him and finish the work. Robert, I will send it over to you.
Thank you, Terry. It fills my heart to hear you speak. That was lovely. Terry and I have worked very closely together this week, and that in itself has been magic. So I'm going to begin my portion here by also reading a poem, but in this case, it wasn't written by me. It's actually the words of a hymn written by Carolyn Rhodes about 1982. It's called We Have Come. Now, I was going to play it as part of the pre-service music, but couldn't find it. And I'm not going to sing it because I only know the bass part. But its lyrics are what I want to talk about. They have remained quite meaningful to me. I've always seen it as a description of victory for mankind on earth. And these thoughts percolated in my mind as I was immersed in memorizing those words, which is always difficult for me. And then working with Peggy Gretsch as she coached us into a performance for the Glen Ivy Chapel. So I sang it with great passion. Now I'm just going to read it. We have come to offer thy blessing, thy holy dwelling place on earth. Honor and glory we bring to the nations. Thy spirit surely now has its birth. We have come to bring thy dominion, thy healing word and open door. We share again our holy communion. The morning stars together sing forevermore. Yes, for me, these words describe the victory fostered by the emissary pioneers, both recent and past. In its simplicity emerges a compelling force. At the time I first sang it, I guess I was particularly with two phrases. One is poetic and stirring. The morning stars shine together and sing forevermore. I missed that wording, but the morning stars together sing forevermore. Kind of reminds you of us, right? Of us together. The other was, I always identified as a mission statement. Honor and glory we bring to the nations. How that captured my enthusiasm for the passion, the grandeur of our collective mission. Felt that very strongly in the 1980s, as I'm sure many of you did. It's great. There's great enthusiasm for all of us. It's still there. In the 1980s, we were speaking of the healing of the nations. It was a hot topic at the time. I was a bit enthralled by the notion of bringing this honor and glory to the nations, to actually create a holy dwelling place on earth. And recently, I just reread Chris Foster's novel, Bearers of the Sun. If you haven't read it, a very brief synopsis would have you following the paths of 5 angels incarnate through their developing years until they finally reconnect by the end of the story. There is a clear-cut destiny laid out before them. And this was no ragtag crew either. We joined them, one of them, as he travels to a Hyannisport beach, where he joins JFK to counsel him at the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis. This was heady stuff, and that's about how I felt about it as well. It seems there were no bounds for angels in human form who follow their integrity, learning to hear that still small voice. Now, as I say, I found such specific purpose to be absolutely thrilling, magical. And as Terry confided, it was a purpose that I and we knew we were ordained to put into action. Now, for me, it was so much so that when I left Glen Ivy in 1994, I moved directly to the East Coast to join forces with others at the United Nations headquarters in New York. We worked as members of the NGO community there. An NGO means non-governmental organization. But there was plenty to do. It was always so fascinating to me how such simple imagery, the honor and glory we bring to the nations became a guiding star for me, almost a directive in life. And I felt greatly honored to be able to fulfill the values and principles which I held so dear, and to follow my integrity to the nations. Yeah, indeed, heady stuff. I did manage to travel to and fro in the world, as it said, but the time came when I began to understand that this was perhaps not everything I needed to be doing. Now, it had seemed a reasonable response at the time, filled with great camaraderie, hospitality, cross-cultural and understanding, working together, with great passion, as much as Chris described in his book. Yet, I knew there was something missing. Something in my consciousness was needing to go through a shift, a change, even further than simply being enthralled. There's a bit buried in the world, you might say. Now, David Brooks, a prominent author and inquirer into the human condition, has written something that I find very useful in exploring this idea of consciousness. In his book, How to Know a Person, he cites some very interesting research into how individual human beings create the world they live in. I'd like to read a couple of passages. Like any artist, each person takes the experiences of a lifetime and integrates them into a complex representation of the world. That representation, the subjective consciousness that makes you, integrates your memories, attitudes, beliefs, convictions, traumas, loves, fears, desires, and goals into your own distinct way of seeing. And to summarize, we literally create our own worlds in our own image. Okay. Well, he goes on, he says, people don't see the world with their eyes, really. They see it with their entire life. Your senses give you a poor quality, low resolution snapshot of the world. And your brain is then forced to take that and construct a high definition, feature-length movie. Now that movie, this is back to me, unquote. That movie may be very interesting and even compelling at times, but it does all extend out of the old earth and the old heaven. And this is where I began to shift myself as I began to realize this I don't know, 20 years ago, and began to pay more attention to what was really happening in terms of the ascension of human consciousness into the new heaven and potentially the new earth. Now, during the last 4 years, Terry and I have spent time in service with all of you, with the Tone of Life and the Temple of Light. And out of that, a very different perspective has emerged. 2 weeks ago, Eugen Pack, and before him, Stuart Berger and David Barnes, drew together a particular focus on the perspective of the Master during his final days on earth. In different ways, they have touched on his last prayer, which has been called his prayer of intercession. In it, he declares, I have glorified thee on earth. I have finished the work which thou gavest me to do. And now, O Father, glorify thou me with the glory which I had with thee before the earth was. Eugen also referred to the illusion of how we see time. He emphasized that the Master's words can be experienced now, as if he speaks to us now, as he says, as thou, Father, art in me, and I in thee, that they also may be one with us. That just fills my heart and mind with wonder. Now, this past week, working with Terry, to come forth in this service, my mind has retreated to just how absolutely critical the first great commandment is, and how it plays a powerful point of focus within this whole raising of consciousness business that we're involved in. Let me read it. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. How simple that seems. Simple, except for those two little words, with all. These two little words appear to stand in the way of all the planning and dreaming and loving and controlling that I need to do, all that is common practice in the old world. I mean, I've claimed all that. You could call these words the tripwire for mankind. And given the precariousness of our times, it is imperative that we begin to honor our full covenant with the Lord. Martin spoke unceasingly of the work we must do to fulfill this covenant, and I'd like to read a portion of a service. He gave this in 1970, later entitled Exact Alignment. The portion was, I see in this a pathway beyond the tripwire I just mentioned, and here's what he says. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. The will of God is done in heaven. When man is in place, what occurs in heaven certainly occurs on earth. The human view of God's will has tended to be a secondhand concept. It is done in heaven. Someone needs to find out about it so that at a later date it can be instituted in the earth. In a bit further on in the passage, he says, I have pointed to the larger field of world events, but exactly the same thing is true from the standpoint of personal experience in the little things of your life. The plan of God, the heavenly plan, is designed so as to bring this lagging state of affairs up to date. The evidence of this being done was spoken of as the shortening of days. There is the thinning out of the dense cloud that has surrounded man, so that the heavenly impact, penetrates more quickly, and the reaction subsequently comes more quickly. The delay between the original action and the reaction is not quite so lengthy. There is not so much as a lag as there has been in centuries past. Then he turns his attention to the earth. He goes on to acknowledge how the usual human activity is quite literally not only in the past, but old stuff. Someone who is letting, these are Hurt's words, someone who is letting God's will be done in earth as it is in heaven updates them. This is what we are here to do. To let the things which come to us be the means by which God's will can be done in earth now, as it is being done in heaven now. Then the thing is updated. When we do that, we find that the things we handle are not what we thought they were. They are transformed by the creative action of God's will, which is allowed to work in the earth now, as it is in heaven. I would point out that the lag between what is done in heaven and a person's reaction to it on earth is actually pretty well known beyond the training of the EDL ministry. I take part in a number of recurrent sessions with friends, taking deep dives into questions of values and consciousness and spirit. We come from different backgrounds. But my friends are quite aware of the need to be shepherds of their thoughts. They have established questions, established habits, which allow them to pause and reflect. They ask themselves these questions whenever they notice their mind drifting into some seeming extraneous thoughts. They use it as a means to give them space and to be in the moment. You could ask yourself, is there really any purpose to giving into this turbulence, whatever it may be? Is this thought more important than what's right here in front of me? Now, I would say there's a certain victory to be attained by using such techniques to allow one to hold steady through life's pressures, as Terry was mentioning. Techniques help. And so these kinds of questions and these kinds of habit patterns are useful. But in the end, it's not about trying to control our thoughts or controlling anything, really. Anything from the standpoint of the old stuff. Now we are being implored to actually live within the new heaven. Come out of her, my people. I forget who actually said that first, but during the 80s, it was the 90s, it was often heard phrase, come out of her, my people. It is a matter of keeping open in mind and heart the space for our love for God. That love is allowed to fully emerge and to flourish. And we have been greatly blessed with instruction concerning the absoluteness of alignment in God. But now is the time to finish that work, to come forth wholly and completely, to understand that with all is not an impossible task. It's ever present with us as the great potential, the possibility of humankind to actually rise to life within the new heaven and consequently call forth the new earth. Only thus will we actually bring honor and glory into the earth. I'd like to finish with another little piece by Yolanda. It follows on Terry's. So this is one of the most stirring passages that I've ever heard Yolanda give. And it captures my heart every time I read it or hear it. When the longing for him is so complete, so all-consuming that nothing else matters. When the yearning for his love is so complete that there are no other considerations. When the willingness to yield to him is so deep and all-consuming that nothing else is left in heart or mind, then he will receive, for he has been waiting long, loving patiently and waiting. So today I celebrate the fact that we can let go of all of our planning and scheming and defenses and everything, and simply love God as he has desired us to do from time immemorial. Terry and I would welcome any comments that you might have to contribute to this conversation.
Robert and Terry, I thank you for your passion. And isn't it that passion that has kept us in the core of the flame? Once we touched it, Terry, you spoke of remembrance. Once we touched it, we couldn't forget. When you remember and truly remember, you never forget. And it's that passion that has guided us throughout all the different cycles that we've been around the spiral and kept alive in our heart, and done the work individually that needed to be done, and all of a sudden come together with this brilliant host of heaven, the stars singing together as one. So thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you, beloved friends, Robert and Terry. You speak of that first great commandment. And as we learn to live in that place, as you mentioned, Robert, it's all. And out of that springs the second great commandment that doesn't require work. It just is, that we love one another. And that's what I felt throughout this hour. The reverberation of the love that I have been so privileged to know with the two of you over all these years. And of course, with many more of you that are here in our company today. Some of you have had the pleasure of meeting in person and others not in person, but I know you all in the spirit of love. Thank you.
And I would just add, while the line is open, that it's wonderful to be with you today in this passion. And I felt that passion in each one of you. I felt it in your very core, and it speaks to my very core. And so What a privilege to be together now in this passionate love for the Lord, for the truth, and to let the world catch fire, because we truly are the light on a consistent basis.
Robert and Terry, my heart is full. This is delightful. This is delightful. No dreams and schemes going on here, no great grandiose plans, but the all-consuming passion of love, the truth of love. Make plans, God laughs, I keep hearing. And we have had some delightful chuckles with you today. Spirit is light giving, and it is lighthearted, even though there are some serious considerations going on in any given moment. There are serious situations to enfold and let the light shine into. There are serious situations to radiate the power of love and attunement. And we do all this because we are delighted to do it and delighted to do it together. Thank you so much. Haven't met you in person that I can recall, but it's good to know you.
Thank you, Terry and Robert. This is Angela Wildeman in Atlanta. And it is a privilege to call you both friends and to serve over many years together. And your words today brought to remembrance a dream I had this week, of which I came downstairs to find my husband already up and about in the morning. And I said, I had a dream of Yolanda. And recalling that I had personally not had that myself before, but your words today brought so much clarity and brought it back to life in this hour. Whereas we spoke of our Lord and King, the Spirit of truth and the Spirit of life. In my dream, I was out and about working in the garden and doing something that I did for many years and caring for a particular place, a sanctuary in Dahlonega, Georgia. And I walked around a corner having been thinking of how to keep at bay frustrations that I had and things that were my responsibility to meet in the world at that particular time. And I turned a corner and lo and behold, Yolanda was standing there, and he put his hand on a tool, a hoe or a rake or something, and just smiled at me. And I, stunned, kind of like looked at him and then walked over, and he just hugged me. And I just was grateful for all that the Spirit of truth has brought to my understanding in the years that I have been here. And Terry and Robert both will remember the times when we first met, and Terry in particular, having allowed and forged my bond with the Spirit of truth. But in this dream, Yolanda, I said, it can be so frustrating. And he shook his head and he just said, people will disappoint you, but we have much work to do. And he handed me some garden tool and he said, you keep doing the work. And then poof, the dream was over and I was awake and downstairs in my living room. But today, those words, we all are very unique, and we each have something that no other person brings. And the world and all of its upheaval and activity and will bring frustrations, but it is the love of the truth and us living our lives that meet it squarely and keep the golden thread alive until possibly one day we are able to meet Yolanda again in person here in this earth. And we finish the work that we are here to do. So thank you so much, my friends, for your lovely words.
Maybe some of you don't know that Robert is a painter, and and Terry is actually a gardener. And both of these activities, I think we saw demonstrated today. I really thank you for both painting a picture of the garden that we are meant to be in and that we move in, with so much behind what you presented today. I could feel the experience and the consciousness that is present in a presentation as you just did. And it makes me really appreciate the ability of the angel to encompass such a range of experience, encompass the fact that many have gone before who have brought us to this point, that profound thankfulness and humility, and at the same time, the right now experience of the absolute requirement that we bring these capacities, which was emphasized, into a state of readiness and openness. And as you were indicating, or you read, the Lord is ready to come right in when there's a place prepared. And that's what I feel you painted and tended, was we have such a responsibility and privilege to prepare a place for him. And here we are doing it in an increasingly more conscious way, and we're doing it together. I couldn't help but think how much more we are experiencing than, for example, configurations in the past. We really, truly are prepared. We have been prepared. We have been tended. And there's such beauty in that. So thanks for the garden and the painting that you both did for us this morning. So much behind it and in it. Lovely. Thank you.
All that everyone has said, I totally agree with. It's been an absolute delight what you have brought, and it's very significant. And what I feel, just to say it very briefly, is you have brought forth an action, that a will that is in heaven, that we are pioneers now, and we are here to finish the work. All that you expressed made that feel so delicious and vibrant and doable. Thank you. I love you both.
Thank you, Marsha, and others. I want to follow up also. And I want to follow up by underlining a few of the words that were spoken. We are here today to do what others cannot do. Clearly, what others cannot do, and we can do because of the vision, the understanding, and the training that we have. We are here to do what others cannot do. What we do, the responding ones in the world will do. What tremendous responsibility and possibility. Then you said, Robert, when the longing for him is so complete that nothing else matters, that there are no other considerations. When that is so, and that is truly so, we are lifted up into a different state. That state, what is that state? Is a state of glory, of oneness with the King. And in that state, because of the completeness of our passion for him, then we are morning stars singing together forevermore. Something so unseen on earth. And then we bring honor and glory to the nations. And we bring not only blessing, attunement to people, to the nations, but we bring honor and glory and majesty of the identity and the expression of the King to the nations. Because in our passion, the conscious knowing of being his body, bringing his glory, his honor to the nation is so vivid. We are here to do this. We are the pioneers to do this today. How wonderful. And I thank you so much.
I'd like to say one more thing. Love of the Lord, total love of the Lord. We have a word for that. It's trust. It's trust that we are capable of doing what is asked of us. It is trust that the Lord has always provided for us and provided what we need and what we can do. Thank you all for your comments. It's very beautiful. And Terry, is there anything else you would like to add?
Well, I am so humbled and so thrilled with the opportunity that I've had to be able to share with you all, y'all, today. And I feel that we're moving into territory that requires specific and deliberate action. And wasn't that what the pioneers had? They couldn't be haphazard. They had to utilize specificity, deliberateness, and wisdom. So I'm very thrilled with what we've shared, and I just love each one and look forward to the new adventures that we have together. Thank you.
Take it away, Steve.
Sure, take it away. I love the time. Thank you all. And really acknowledging the presence of the Lord right now together. If two or three or many gathered in his name, here he is. Here he is. Let's just hold that for a second or two. We have come to offer thy blessing. Let's continue in this way. Our next service will be on May 26th with Alan and Christine Jonas. I look forward to. And then in June, Carol Travis and Susanna Light on June 23rd will be leading our time. Wow. Wonderful to see. Wonderful to hear. Robert, you have some music to conclude?
Nobody wants to go.